It often begins subtly. A skipped trip to the post office, a quiet afternoon at home that turns into many. And before anyone notices, someone who once carried a gentle vibrancy now seems to fade into the background. This quiet transformation is common among those over the age of 80, but it is rarely spoken about openly. It's not sudden and it's not always dramatic, but it is real, and it often goes unaddressed until the effects are deeply rooted. We often attribute such changes to age itself, saying, well, that's just part of getting older. But what if it isn't? What if a significant part of the decline we see after 80 has more to do with changes in routine, connection, and perception than with aging alone? One of the first things to quietly disappear is something called micro-social engagement. These are the small, seemingly insignificant interactions we have throughout the day. The familiar nod to a neighbor walking their dog, a quick chat with the grocery store clerk, a casual exchange with someone at the park. These moments are brief, but they play a surprisingly profound role in our well-being. Mrs. Evelyn, now 84, used to enjoy walking to her local bakery every morning. The owner would greet her with a smile and ask about her garden. Other regulars would wave. The same jogger passed by at nearly the same time each day. These moments weren't long, and they didn't require emotional effort, but they gave Evelyn a sense of continuity, of being part of something larger than herself. Then one winter, snow and ice made her hesitant to go out. Days turned into weeks. The bakery outing stopped. At first, she enjoyed the extra rest, watching her shows from the warmth of her living room. But over time, something shifted. She found herself waking up later, forgetting names, and feeling unmotivated. Friends said she seemed less present. But no one connected this change to the loss of those tiny social moments. Micro-social connections regulate our nervous system. They stimulate small but consistent neurological feedback loops, keeping the social parts of the brain active and healthy. They also reinforce a subtle sense of belonging and usefulness, which is critical for emotional stability, especially in later life. Loneliness, particularly the quiet kind that comes without sadness, still activates stress responses in the body. Hormones like cortisol increase, affecting everything from sleep to digestion. Inflammation rises. The immune system weakens. Even the structure of the brain begins to change. Research has shown that isolation, especially when it creeps in unnoticed, can shrink the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, and decrease activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making and emotional regulation. This is why it matters. The problem is, these losses are rarely addressed. No one is rushing in to prescribe more small talk or brief nods from passing neighbors. Yet for someone in their 80s, these small interactions may be as essential to health as nutrition and medication. Consider Mr. Harold, 86, who used to visit the same bench in the park every afternoon. He didn't say much to anyone, but he always saw the same faces. The woman who walked her golden retriever, the elderly couple who fed birds, and the child who waved to him from a stroller. One day, his daughter suggested he skip the park due to cold weather. Then came rainy days, and soon enough, Harold stayed in every day. Within a month, his energy dipped. He stopped shaving regularly. He became forgetful. "I just don't feel like myself anymore," he said, and truly, he wasn't. His world had become too quiet, too solitary. His body and brain responded accordingly. It's important to understand that fading after 80 isn't just about slowing down. It's often about disconnecting, even unintentionally, from the web of tiny, life-affirming social cues that keep us alert, oriented, and emotionally balanced. Fortunately, the solution isn't complicated. It just requires intention. Simple reconnections can reignite that inner spark. A brief wave from the porch, a short chat with the pharmacist, a smile at the person delivering the mail. If going out is difficult, inviting someone over for tea, even once a week, can break the silence. Watching the neighborhood from the window and giving a friendly nod can remind others and yourself that you're still part of this living world. Technology can help too, if used with care. A video call with a family member, a short voice message sent to a friend, even a friendly comment on a shared photo can recreate that micro-social engagement digitally. Another helpful approach is to create rituals of connection. For instance, Evelyn began writing small postcards again. She chose one friend or relative each day. It gave her something to look forward to and prompted a response, however brief, that kept her social circuits engaged. Over time, she felt lighter, more grounded, and more like herself. The human nervous system thrives on interaction, not necessarily deep conversations, but regular low-stakes social signals. When these fade, the brain interprets it as a withdrawal from life, and it begins to downregulate motivation, cognition, and vitality. That's when the fading becomes visible. But it doesn't have to be permanent. So if you or someone you love is over 80 and starting to seem more distant, quieter, or less interested in daily life, consider this. Maybe what's missing isn't energy or even health, but connection. Maybe it's those tiny gestures that once went unnoticed that now need to be consciously reclaimed. There is beauty in the ordinary. A small smile, a nod of recognition, a passing hello. These are not just social niceties, they are lifelines. And after 80, they might just be the most important medicine of all. By the time someone reaches their early 80s, society often expects them to take a step back, to rest, to relax, to enjoy the golden years. While that may sound peaceful, it can quietly mask a more troubling reality, disengagement, and not just from work or busy schedules, but from a sense of purpose. Purpose is not just a lofty ideal, it is a neurological stimulant. A sense of usefulness, no matter how humble, activates motivation circuits in the brain, keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged, and strengthens the body's overall resilience. Without it, the mind begins to drift. Focus wanes, confidence dims, and slowly individuals begin to withdraw, not because they are tired of life, but because life no longer seems to need them. Take the story of Mr. Robert, a retired accountant who had always been meticulous, precise, and reliable. After retirement, he enjoyed a few leisurely years. He traveled a bit, joined a walking group, and attended weekly bridge games. But by 82, many of his friends had either moved away or passed on. His walking group dwindled, and the bridge club closed due to lack of attendance. At first, Robert enjoyed the solitude, but within a year, his daughter noticed he had become forgetful and emotionally flat. His clothes were wrinkled. He spoke less. When asked about his day, he often responded, "Not much, just passing time." That quiet phrase, "just passing time," revealed more than it seemed. Robert was no longer actively participating in life. He was drifting through it. The absence of daily purpose is especially dangerous because it doesn't cause an immediate crisis. It creeps in. Days blur together. Memory slips not from age alone, but from a lack of meaningful engagement. Without a reason to remember, the brain sees no reason to store new information. Neurologists have noted that those who maintain strong cognitive health into their 90s often have one thing in common: they still have responsibilities. Whether it's tending a garden, mentoring younger relatives, volunteering at the library, or simply being the go-to person for advice in their community, these individuals are needed. And the brain responds to being needed with vigor. Mrs. Amina, 88, lives in a senior community where she runs a small news board. She prints out headlines, posts jokes of the day, and lists upcoming birthdays. It's a modest role, but she takes it seriously. Every morning she wakes with a plan: check the news, arrange the notes, and greet the residents as they pass by. This routine gives her a sense of structure and purpose. Her eyes sparkle with alertness. She remembers names, dates, and small details. People often comment that she seems younger than her age, but it's not youth, it's relevance. Conversely, when someone begins to feel irrelevant, it sets off a silent chain reaction. They may begin to question their value. Thoughts like, "I don't want to be a burden," or "no one needs me anymore," creep in. These thoughts, if left unchecked, can contribute to depression, anxiety, and a lowered immune response. The person may stop taking their medications properly, neglect meals, or avoid appointments, not because they want to decline, but because nothing seems important enough to make the effort. This is why disengagement must be recognized early. Not every elderly person wants to join a club or volunteer publicly, but every person needs to feel useful. Even small roles, feeding the pet, organizing family photos, helping a grandchild with homework over the phone, can ignite that vital spark. Technology, if introduced gently, can also be a bridge back to purpose. One elderly man began recording voice notes about family history for his grandchildren. Another woman began crocheting tiny hats for premature babies at a local hospital. These acts might seem minor, but they reconnect older adults to the world around them. They make them feel part of something ongoing, something meaningful. When older adults stop feeling useful, it's often not due to choice. It's because they haven't been offered meaningful opportunities to contribute. Families and communities must rethink what inclusion means. Asking a parent for advice, inviting them to help prepare a meal, involving them in decisions, or simply acknowledging their importance can make all the difference. Because sometimes, fading after 80 is not about the body giving out. It's about the soul no longer being asked to show up. By the time the signs of fading become visible, slowed speech, lack of energy, less interest in hobbies, many families believe it's simply the natural course of aging. But that's not always the case. In many instances, the downward shift can be softened or even reversed. Not with medication, but with reconnection. Consider Mrs. Teresa, 89, who had stopped attending her church group during the pandemic. At first, it seemed like a temporary pause, but once in-person events resumed, she didn't return. "I've just gotten used to the quiet," she said. Her family noticed her becoming more forgetful, sometimes repeating stories or forgetting names. A visit to the doctor showed no signs of dementia. Instead, the physician gently explained, "What she needs isn't more rest, it's more engagement." With encouragement, Teresa began attending a local quilting circle again. The change was slow but steady. At first, she was hesitant and reserved, but as the weeks passed, she began smiling more, recalling details with greater clarity, even offering design suggestions to newer members. Her memory improved, not through therapy, but through connection. The human brain is more adaptable than we think, even in later life. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new pathways, does not shut down at 80. It simply requires stimulation, and that stimulation often comes from novelty, social interaction, and having a reason to pay attention. Families and caregivers play a central role here. Rather than assuming someone wants to be left alone, it's worth asking gently, "Would you like to try something new?" This might be a weekly lunch outing, a shared puzzle, a phone call with a distant cousin, or even looking through old photo albums together. Small changes often yield the biggest returns. One widower, Mr. Samir, had lived alone for years. His children assumed he enjoyed the solitude, but he was, in truth, lonely. After they began inviting him to weekly dinners, his mood lifted. He started sharing more stories. He even began teaching his granddaughter chess. That spark, once dimmed, began to glow again. There's also something powerful about intergenerational interaction. Older adults come alive around children, not just because of joy, but because children need them. That need, that opportunity to guide and nurture, reawakens something primal and fulfilling. Seniors who regularly interact with children or younger relatives often show improved memory, better mood, and greater physical activity. It's also important to normalize emotional check-ins. Older adults often hide their feelings, not wanting to worry others. Creating a safe space to ask, "How are you really feeling?" can open the door to healing. It may uncover grief, boredom, or quiet depression, all of which can be softened through companionship, not just counseling. As the light of vitality begins to flicker, it does not have to extinguish. With care, attention, and patience, it can grow stronger again, because fading after 80 is not inevitable. It is a sign, one that gently calls for reconnection, purpose, and the invitation to be seen, heard, and valued once more.